2016, like every year, had its ups and its downs. And now that it's over, today I'll be recapping last year's events in 5 minutes. On January 16th, Tsai Ing-wen was elected president of Taiwan, becoming the first female president and the second president from the Democratic Progressive Party. She won 61% of the vote, beating out her main competitor, Eric Chu, who had 31% of the vote. Also on January 16th, Iran dismantled its nuclear program, causing the UN to lift sanctions on the nation immediately. On January 28th, the World Health Organization announced an outbreak of the Zika virus. On February 7th, North Korea launched its first long-range rocket into space, sparking condemnation around the world. South Korea began discussing a missile defense system with the US due to fears over the country's developing nuclear program. On February 11th, scientists announced that they had recorded audio of two black holes colliding. It was the first piece of evidence of gravitational waves, proving the final unproven parts of Einstein's general theory of relativity. These unproven parts were that space and time are connected and changeable. On March 14th, the European Space Agency and the Roscosmos State Corporation, Ross's space agency, launched the joint ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter on a mission to Mars. The orbiter will conduct atmospheric research on the red planet, with a large focus on better understanding methane and other trace gases in the atmosphere. It also included Schiaparelli, designed to demonstrate technology that can be used for future soft landings on the planet, as well as a very limited selection of science tools. On March 24th, former Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He was found guilty of committing crimes against humanity and genocide during the Bosnian War, a war between Bosnia and Herzegovina that took place between 1992 and 1995. On April 2nd, conflict between Armenian and Azerbaijani troops in Nagorno-Karabakh resulted in the death of at least 193. This became the largest breach of the Bishkek Protocol, a ceasefire that terminated the Nagorno-Karabakh War. On April 3rd, the Panama Papers were leaked, revealing how some of the world's richest people funneled their assets through the small Central American country via secretive shell companies set up in lightly regulated jurisdictions. On May 21st, US President Obama confirmed that the leader of the Afghan Taliban was killed in a US drone strike on his car in Pakistan. However, a new leader with no military experience was named after 4 days. On May 21st through the 25th, US President Obama visited Vietnam with plans to create a stronger relationship between the nations. This happened a day after the US lifted its embargo on the sales of lethal weapons to the country. On June 1st, the Gotthard Base Tunnel, the world's deepest and longest railway tunnel, opened after 2 decades of construction. It is 55.8 kilometers long and runs through the Swiss Alps. On June 5th, former Prime Minister Pedro Pablo Kaczynski won the popular vote in the Peruvian presidential election. On June 23rd, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union in a 52% majority vote. On July 1st, Latvia became the 35th member of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, a group founded in 1961. On July 4th, NASA's Juno spacecraft entered orbit around Jupiter and began a 20-month survey after a 5-year-long journey through space. On July 26th, the Swiss-made Solar Impulse 2 became the first solar-powered aircraft to circumnavigate the world. On August 1st, the CDC issued a warning about the Zika virus in Florida, as 10 additional people had been infected with the virus since July. On August 5th, the 2016 Summer Olympics began in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and ended on August 21st. On September 3rd, the US and China, contributors of 40% of the world's carbon emissions, both ratified the Paris Global Climate Agreement. This agreement is meant to reduce carbon emissions by 40% worldwide by 2030. On September 8th, NASA launched OSIRIS-REx, the agency's first asteroid return mission, which will return samples from Bennu, a 492-meter diameter asteroid that has a 1 in 2,700 chance of impacting Earth in the late 22nd century. Starting on October 1st, Nobel Prizes were awarded to 11 people. On October 13th, the Maldives announced a decision to leave the Commonwealth of Nations, a group made up of 52 states, most of which were once territories of the British Empire. On November 8th, Donald Trump became the president-elect of the United States, receiving 74 more electoral votes than Clinton, despite losing the popular vote by 2.6 million votes. On November 18th, the Soyuz MS-03 spacecraft carried the next crew, including a Russian commander and a French and American flight engineer, to the International Space Station. On December 19th, a truck drove through a crowd at a Christmas market in Berlin, killing 11 and injuring 49 others. On December 20th, President-elect of the United States, Donald Trump, was officially elected president when the Electoral College confirmed his win. He will be inaugurated in January of this year.